So today I have another fun game for us to make using native JavaScript, and it is a game of Connect 4. So if you're like me, you guys might have played this growing up. I used to play this game to death during lunchtime of my school, in the elementary school. And basically the premise of the goal is to get 4 in a row. So you could get 4 in a row vertically like so. And the game will also show you the rows that the circles that wins the match, and also it will update the status like so. But again, you could win vertically, horizontally, and finally, let me just show you guys real quick, diagonally, like so. Okay, so this is what we're gonna be building today. Now, I know the CSS and the styling is a little bit generic, but I kind of did that intentionally because what we're going to be focusing on in this video is only JavaScript. So I am going to give you guys the HTML file and the CSS file that has all the styling already done. And what we're going to be focusing on is just the JavaScript aspect. Now, why I say I kind of did this intentionally is after we are done with this project, and by the way, you don't have to be super good at JavaScript to do this project. If you're a beginner, it's fine. As long as you know the basics of JavaScript, you should be able to follow along. But after we finish this project, I encourage you guys to go back to the HTML file and even the JavaScript file actually, but also the CSS file, and try to make it into your own personal liking. Maybe you could update the styling, you could update the status that's written here or the button and so on. And I give you guys full permission to use this project in your personal portfolios, personal projects, or whatever you want to use it. I have open sourced this, so that is, there won't be any troubles afterwards. So feel free again to use this in your personal projects. By the way, if this is your first time in my channel, first of all, I would like to say welcome. Thank you for clicking in on this video. My name is Justin Kim and I'm a full stack developer based in Los Angeles. And if you guys like my content, please click like and subscribe below, and I'll be releasing video tutorials like this one. And I also make a lot of videos on React as well. So if you're interested in React, you could please subscribe and check out my other videos related to those projects. Last week, we made a fun Pokédex, and we also made a tic-tac-toe game using native JavaScript. So if you guys are also interested in those, links will be in the description below. Anyways, on with the video. Okay, so let's get started. I have my IDE open on the left side of my screen. So feel free to use any editor of your choice, whether it be VS Code or whatever. I personally like using WebStorm, so I have WebStorm open on my left side. And if you look in the description below, you will see 3 links to our starting code. One will be the index.html, which looks like this. If you open it up, the next one is style.css. And the final one is the starting code for the app.js. So what I want us to do is open up an empty folder within your IDE, within your editor, and we're going to make 3 files. One is going to be called index.html. The other one is going to be called style.css. And the final one is going to be called app.js, like so. Now let me close this left menu. Let me zoom in each of my empty files just so that we could have an easier time looking at them. And what I want us to do is first go to the index.html file. So you could either copy this by doing this, or if you're lazy, if you want it a little bit more efficient, what I just did was I clicked the raw button on the right side, and then you could just do Control A, copy, and paste. So this is our index.html file. And now let's do the same thing for our style.css. Go to raw, select all, and paste. And finally, let's get our starting code for app.js. By the way, I know that I said that we are gonna build the JS from scratch, but the reason why I'm giving you guys this starting code is actually you'll see, because it's very tedious. This whole in the beginning stuff is very tedious, so I kind of did it for us. But let's go back to our index.html file and open up a preview of this page, of this HTML file. So if everything worked according to plan, you should see the Connect 4 board like so, with the reset button and everything. Okay, so now, before we go on, let me just briefly explain what's going on here. So there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 rows, but not really. There's actually 7 because the top row also counts as a row. But I call these top row top, as you see on my HTML right here. You see the highlighting right here. But the other rows, I start calling them row 0. So this will be row 0. Again, this is row top. Every cell element here, I call them cells. Every div, and they're actually divs, by the way, but every of these will have the cell class, but they will also have a row class with hyphen and the row number index or top, depending on where they are. So this is row top. And then this is row 0, row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as you see all the way down here. Now, that's not the only thing, but they also have columns. So this is column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3, 4, 5, and 6. So each div will have a row and a column. And later, when we start selecting these divs to manipulate them in JavaScript, we could refer to their classes to see which row index and which column index we are dealing with. Not only that, we also have this button class reset. So remember, this is a button of class reset. And although we can't see anything on the right side, we will see our status. You don't have to do this, but let me just write status here within the span tag and to see our status. So this is what you see here. And this, we're going to be using JavaScript later to add stuff, the text inside the span later on. Okay, so that is our HTML5. We're not going to be messing with this. Oh, let me also just show you guys how we display the red or the yellow, depending on whose turn it is. So I have already added the style for everything. But if you notice here, notice this row 0, column 0, this one. If I choose, by the way, this one, row 0, column 0, is this one, the very top left cell. If I add a class called yellow here, look at what happens. I'm going to refresh the page, and now this becomes yellow. If I write red here, it becomes red. And this doesn't just, this applies to any of these cells that we have. So I could just put it somewhere random here, and you see it here. But it also applies to the top row. Let me show you guys that right now. Red, and how about we put yellow for this one? So you can see those two up here. By the way, the reason why I have the top row here is to kind of give the user a visual aid of if you hover over somewhere where they're going to be putting their little piece in. So let's erase all these red and yellows. And if you're curious how I made this red poker chip and the yellow poker chip show up when I add the class, this is maybe a little bit intermediate level CSS stuff. But if you go to my CSS file, style.css, let me see where I put that. Yes, so on the cell, I used a CSS pseudo element called the after. So what this does is it adds a element within the div, and the element that we're adding is this thing. Background white, border radius 50%, border has a 3 pixel solid black, cursor becomes a pointer, height 75, and width 75. Now, if the after occurs within a cell that has the red class, I know this is kind of confusing, but don't worry about it if you're not interested in this. Again, this video is focusing on JavaScript, so this is not the importance right now. But pretty much I'll give the background red. If it was yellow, then I'll give it yellow. So that's how these guys are showing up. Also, later on, this is much later in the video, but we're also going to have classes called win. So what this win does is if I go back to my index.css, let's refresh the page, make those go away. If I put red and win class, then if you notice, I put a red border too, like a outline. I don't know, this is not really border, but you could see the point. The reason why I did this is later when we have 4 in a row, this win will show the user which 4 or more pieces has won the game. So let's erase that. All right, so let's go back to our app.js. Let me explain this starting code real quick. So if you look at the first line, we have const all cells, document query selector all. What this does is it selects more than one element within our HTML file. And the selector that I'm using is a class of cell that is not a row top. So this all cells will grab all of these cells, but not the 7 cells on the top. Not these top cells, but everything from this part all the way to this part. So that's what this all cells grab. The reason why I put the not row top is we're excluding the top cells up here. Now, because we have excluded the top cells, I grab them separately in this top cells where I use query selector all dot cell dot row top. Reset button, we're grabbing this reset button, and the status span, we're grabbing the empty status span that we have right here. Now, again, the reason why I'm giving you guys this is not so much this top part, because I could have just coded that along with you, but it's this columns and this row stuff that I have going on here. All right, so check out let's go over the rows first. So we have the top row. It's an array that grabs all the top cells 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and puts them in an array. And then we have row 0. It grabs cell 0, index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So pretty much row 0 will grab this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. And then row 1 will grab the second row here. Row 2 is here. Row 3, row 4, row 5, like so. And later, once I have made all those rows, if you notice here on the const rows, that's an array of an array. This is, I just put all the rows in here later because this may become useful for us to use. So it may be a little bit confusing right now, but please just keep in mind what's going on and you will hopefully see what's going on in a bit. But columns, we pretty much do the same thing except with a caveat. Look at what I'm grabbing. For column 0, which is this column, I put all cells at index 35 first. So, and then 28, and then 21, 14, 7, 0, and the top cell I also chose to add. So what's going on here is I am filling up each column from bottom up. So we get this as a 0th index, first index, second, third, fourth, fifth, and the top cell as 6th. So that's what we did for columns 0 through 6. And also we have the columns, which is an array of an array again, with all the columns inside. And again, we're going to be using these to make our life easier. All right, so now hopefully you guys understood what's going on here. Now let's begin coding. I'm going to be dividing up this app.js file into different sections. Right now we have the DOM elements section. Now the next section we're going to build is, I'm just going to call these variables. And these are the variables that we're going to be using in this game. So we're going to have 2 for now. How about game is live? And I will initialize this as true. So this will be a Boolean that tells us whether the game is on or not. So for example, right now it's on because it's true, but later if someone wins, we're gonna set this as false, meaning the game is not live anymore. And then we're gonna have another variable, it's gonna be another Boolean, and we're gonna call this one yellow is next. And this will be initialized as true. I actually looked at the Connect 4 game rules and they did say the yellow always goes first. So if yellow is next is true, then it will be yellow's turn. If this is false, it will be red's turn. So hopefully that made sense. So those are the 2 variables that we're going to be dealing with. And now at the very bottom, we're going to be adding event handlers to each of our cells. So let me just divide up a section for that. How about event listeners? So what we have to do is when we hover over any of these rows, by the way, I'm not clicking anything right now. I'm just hovering over each of these cells, right? What I want to do is I want to show the user, depending on whose turn it is, I want to show them the hockey puck. I don't know what you call these, the puck, the chess piece. I mean, the checker pieces at the very top of the column that you are hovering over. So if yellow is next and I am hovering over here, I want to see a yellow puck at the very top here to let the user know, look, you're going to be dropping it in this column. So we're going to be adding a couple of different event types to all of these cells. So we could either manually get all 41 or more, there's probably more cells than these, and add them individually, or we could do a loop and add them in a few lines of code. So let's do that first. So adding event listeners, we're gonna be looping through all of our cells, including the top row, because we also wanna show that when we're hovering over the top row cells too. So the way that I'm gonna loop over everything is I'm gonna use this const rows that we have on line 26. So this again is an array of an array, and each of the row inside the rows array will have all the cells within its row. So we could just loop over these rows right here. So first, let's do, I'm gonna do a for of loop for const row of rows. This will give me each of the rows. Let me just console log the row to show you guys what's going on. Let's refresh the page here. Let me open up the, what is this called? Terminal? Console, I mean. And we have arrays. So we're console logging each of the row within this rows array. So now that we have each row, we want to do another for loop for each of the cells in the row. So we're going to do for const cell of rows, of row, I mean. And now we have access to each of the cells. So let me just console log the cell just to show you guys what's going on. I refresh the page. We have all of these cells. Hopefully you guys see that. If I hover over them, you can see on the HTML what is being hovered over. So we have access to every single cell, including the top ones, as you see at the very bottom up here, down here. Okay, so now the first event listener I want to add is, let's do this. We're gonna get the cell that we're iterating over, that we're getting it from this for loop, and we're gonna add an event listener. And the first type that we're gonna add is mouse over, all lowercase. And we could make an inline function here, but I don't want to do that. What I want to do is make another function that we're gonna reference here. So before I write that here, let's make a new section on top, below the variables, above the adding the event listener section. And I'm gonna call these the event handlers. And the first event handler I'm gonna call, I'm gonna make this into an ES6 arrow notation. Hopefully you guys are used to that. We're gonna call this one handle cell mouse over, camel case like that. And we do need the E event parameter. Let me just put it like so. And we're gonna be referencing this function inside our adding event listeners part right here. So whenever we mouse over any of these cells, this function will fire. Now, if you guys have never seen this before, let's see what this E is. Console log E, and let's see what that is. I refresh the page. Whenever I hover over a cell, you see a mouse event here. So this gives you all the information of the mouse event that just occurred. So if I keep on hovering over different places, you see a bunch of mouse events. So what I am interested in is I am interested in which row and which column just had the mouse event. So looking at this, it might be kind of hard to pinpoint where that is, but I have explicitly, if you remember, go back to my index.html file, I have explicitly given each one a row class and a column class that we could extract the index from. So that's what we're gonna be doing. So go back to our app.js, and how do we have access to the cell, to the div that we are hovering a mouse overing? So the way that we have access to that is, let me extract that out to a variable. I'm gonna call that cell. It is in the e.target property. So let me just console log this cell that we have just made and see what we get. So remember, we had this complicated mouse event for E, but we are extracting the e.target. And when I hover now, I have access to the actual div itself. So that's why I'm calling this the cell, because we have grabbed the cell from the mouse event. And now I want to do a couple things. Remember what I said? Where we have the information of what row and what column it is within the class of the cell. So we have to get the class. So the way that we could get the class is this. Let me just show you guys. I'm gonna write const class list, and we just do cell.class list. Let me console log what that is to show you guys. By the way, in my videos, we're going to be console logging a lot of things, but I do that because one, practically, if you're a JavaScript developer, you do console log a lot. So I think it'll be good practice. And also it gives us a more insight as to what's going on. So when we hover over now, we see this weird DOM token list array-like object, but it's not, it looks like an array, but it's not really an array. So what I want to do with this is I actually want to make this into an array because it will be easier to work with later. So this is what I'm going to do. The way that I can make this DOM token list into an array is there's more than one ways, but the way that I'm going to do it is try doing this. Let's do capital array and do from array.from and put the class list. So what this will do is it will get this array-like object. This is an object right here. By the way, let me just show you guys that it is an object first. Let's do this. Console log type of, no, maybe type of is not the best way. Let's first see if this class list is an array or not. So the way that we could do that is to capital array is array. This is a method that tells us whether the argument that we put in is an array or not. Let me refresh the page. I hover over it and I get false, meaning this class list is not an array. So to make it an array, we could either do array.from and put the class list. So if we do that, now we have arrays, or a shorthand notation of this is like put an array like so. And we're gonna use a spread operator on the class list. So this is an operator in JavaScript. It's called a spread operator. Pretty much it spreads, it comma separates each of the entities, each of the elements in this class list into comma separated values. So that's how we create the array. So essentially array.from and this does the same thing, as you can see here. Okay, so however, we're gonna be doing extracting the class list and making it into an array a lot. So I want us to make that into another function, into a separate function. So just above the event handler section, I'm going to have another section called the functions that we're going to be using. These are kind of like the utility functions. So the first function we're going to be using ES6 arrow notation is going to be called, how about get class list? Is that the best one? How about get class list array? To be more explicit, that we're getting an array of classes. So the argument that I want for this one is the cell itself. We're going to be passing in the cell, and we're going to pretty much copy this, not the second one actually. We're going to get the const class list from the cell, and then we're going to return the spread version of the class list. We have converted it to an array. So that's what this function will do. And then we will just call get class list array here, like so. Let's just console log the class list just to make sure that we are on the right track. And yes, we are. So now let's grab from our class list the row index here and the column index. So how we are going to do that is I am going to make another function for this because we're going to be using this many times. And I'm going to put it within our functions category. I'm going to call this const get row get cell location. How about that? And we will pass in a cell as an argument. And then given a cell, we're going to give an array that gives us the row as the 0th element and the column number as the first element, kind of like this. So for example, this one right here, right? Where is that? This is row 0, column 0. So it will give us 0, 0. Okay, so let's see how we're going to handle this. Get cell location, we're going to get the cell. Let me get the class list by calling this get class list array within this function. So we're going to do const class list get class list array of the cell. And then now that we have the class list, we gotta get the row class and the column class. So const row class is gonna equal, remember class list is an array, so we could do array methods on it. we could invoke array methods on it. And that's why we converted it to an array, by the way. So we're going to do class list.find. I'm going to use the find function, the find method within arrays. This takes a callback function. So what I'm going to put is we're going to be iterating over each of the elements within this array. So I'm going to call each element, what should I call them? How about class name? I can't call them class because that's a reserved keyword, hence it's turning purple. So we'll call it class name. We're going to be looping over each of the classes, and then we want to find the class name that includes the lowercase row string. So this will loop through each of the classes in the class list array, and it will give us back the class list, the class name that has the row string inside of its class name. So if it doesn't find, if none of the elements have the row class, then it will actually give us, I think, was it null or was it negative? I think it's null. Let me just hover over this to see. It's multiple implementation. I think it gives us null. But we know that every single time that we do this find, we will always get back a class name. So let me just show you guys what is going on. Let's do console log row class. Like so. I'm going to also put the string to show you guys what we're console logging. And instead of calling the get class list array here, how about we just call, let me erase this from the handle cell mouse over event handler, I mean. We're going to just call get cell location of our cell, like so. So now when we hover over, we should see the row class. Do you see this? We see the row 4, row 5, and so on. So we have successfully gotten the row class. Now let's do the same thing except for the column class. Column class, and we'll put this column. And now I'm going to assume that works. And then what we have to do now is, let me also just console log that real quick. Row class and column class, just so that we have reference. Okay, so you're seeing both the rows and the columns. What I want to do is I want to extract out these numbers right here. So the way that I'm going to do that is put them in a variable. Let's do const row index. And that's going to be from our row class. And the index is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's always the fourth index. Same thing with the column index. Call class at the fourth index. Let's console log the index now just to make sure that we are on the right track. Row index, column index. Refresh the page. Now we're getting 2 numbers, right? So that's good. However, there's a small problem right now. If you go to the top row, you get the T for the row. So this is kind of nasty, but this is because this is the way that we set up the HTML file. But it's fine because we will just ignore that for now. However, if you know what type this row index and the column index is, they are actually strings right now. But what I want to do is I want to convert them to a number, specifically to an integer, because later when we start doing addition arithmetic, if they're strings, it may give us problems. And usually if you're dealing with numbers, we just want to make them explicitly of the JavaScript type number. So the way that we're going to do that is we are going to, how about this, const row number. I'm going to use the parse int function on it and put the row index with the base 10. This will convert it to a number of base 10, which is the base that we want. And then column number, parse int, column index with 10. Now let's console log the row number and the column number now. And let me show you guys what happens. Refresh the page. Now, notice it's purple now. That's Google telling us that these are numbers. But if we go to the top ones, we get NaN, meaning not a number. But that's fine for us because later when we start messing with it, we could just check to see if it is a valid number or not, if we need to. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna return the row index as the first element of an array, and then we're gonna return the column, not the row index, I'm sorry, the row number and the column number, like so. And if you want to shorten this up just a little bit, you don't have to, but you could just grab this and put it here. But whatever, I'll just leave it like this. So now this get cell location, which we are calling within a handle cell mouse over, we are getting an array with two elements, the row number and the column number. So let me just do const output of the array, and let me console log this output to see what it is, just to make sure that we are on the right track. And now we're dealing with an array. However, we're never gonna be dealing with this as an array. We're always gonna be destructuring the row index and the column index. So why don't we do that right now? We're gonna use the ES6 destructuring notation. If you haven't seen this before, it should be pretty intuitive. The way that I'm gonna do that is put array brackets here, and the 0th element, I'm gonna be calling that the row index now, and I'm gonna be calling the second one the column index. You could call this row number, column number too, but I personally like the index and the column index better. And now, if you console log these, by the way, if you haven't done this before, this is called the destructuring property. We could destructure each of the elements in this array. Now, if I console log this, we have the index and the column index in a number form, including the not a number part too, but that's fine too. Okay, so now that we have that, what do we want to do? Whenever we mouse over any part, remember what we said? We want to grab the top cell of the top row of the up here and put a little a puck, the little checker piece up top here to show you guys where you're going to be placing it if you do click here, right? So first what we need is we need the top cell associated with the cell that we're hovering over. So thankfully, when we have the column index, which tells us which column we're on, we could use that column index to grab the top cell from this, where is it? If I could just find it. I think it's top row, I mean. Within this top row array, if we use that column index and put it as an element, as the index number, then we will grab the associated top cell. So the way that I'm gonna do that is this. Let me just put this 19 and then const top cell. This will be the associated top cell with the cell that we're hovering over. And we're going to use the top cells array and put the column index in there. And then let's see. What do we want to do with this top cell? We want to add a class on it depending on whose turn it is. And whose turn it is determined by this yellow is next property boolean that we have up here. We will say if yellow is next is triple equals to true, or to be short, if yellow is next, because it's a boolean, we could just shorthand it like that. Then we want to add to the top cells class list another class which we hard code as yellow. Else we want to add red, like so. Now let's see if that works. Whenever I hover over these, we're getting the yellows right now. And we're getting the yellows because yellow's turn is next, as we have said that this is true. But also we have another problem is when we hover away, this yellow puck should disappear, but it's not disappearing. We're gonna add another event listener that removes them later. But as of now, everything's working because no matter where we hover over, which row we hover over, we're seeing the yellow. So that is good. Okay, so by the way, notice this if else condition took 5 lines of code. There's a way to write this shorthand. We're gonna use the ternary operator. And the way that we can do that is just do top cell class list add if yellow is next. If that is true, put a question mark, then add the yellow string, else put a colon, put a red class. So that is a shorthand notation to write the if else condition we just had. So I think that is good. Now, what should we do? after this? I don't think we need to do after. So I think our handle cell mouse over is done for now. So we'll just leave it like this. Now, unfortunately, within this get cell location, we didn't use the row index, but that's fine. We'll just leave it there for now. Let's add another event listener where if we hover away from that cell, we remove this class, this yellow that was up here. Let's see. I'm gonna make another event handler. I'm gonna call this const handle cell mouse. I forgot what this was called. Mouse out. Mouse move. Let's see. MDN mouse events. Event reference. Let's see. Mouse events. There we go. All right, so we just did mouse over. Oh, we want the mouse out now. A pointing device is moved off the element that has a listener attached or off one of its children. So that's what we want, a mouse out. So we're gonna be calling this one handle cell mouse out. This also has an E associated with it. Let's grab the cell from e.target. We can just grab that from here. And we probably need the cell location too. So why don't we copy this first 2 lines of code. And now that we have the handle cell out, let's add another event listener to our adding event listener section. So add event listener, mouse out, all lowercase here, handle cell mouse out, like so. Now, what do we want to do if we are mousing out of a cell? What we want to do is we want to get rid of the yellow class or the red class of the top cell. So we probably need access to the top cell first. So let's just grab this code up here and get the top cell again for our associated cell that we're mouse outing of. And then what we want to do is we want to remove the yellow class or the red class depending on which class is added. So we could conditionally check to see which class is added and then remove that conditionally. Or we could just do this. Top cell, class list, remove the yellow, and also remove the red. So if what this will do is if the class yellow exists, it will remove it. If it doesn't do anything. If the class red exists, it will remove it. If it doesn't do anything. So we don't even need to check conditionally to see which class is there. Just remove both of them if they exist. Let's see if that works. Now when we hover away from each of our cells, the mouse moves away. So that's good. Now finally, we want to add another event handler, and that is the handling of the click event. This is the most important one. So we will call this const handle cell click. This also has an E event. And let's add it down here. Cell add event listener click handle cell click. And what do we want to do when we click? So when we click, we want to make sure, first of all, that the column that we're clicking on is not full. Because if it's full, we don't want to do anything, right? But we'll worry about that logic later. What we want to do is we want to find the first available cell within that column from the bottom, and then fill that one up depending on whose turn it is. So we first need access to the very first cell in that column. So let's make a function that gives us, depending on which column we're on, the first available open cell. So again, let's not destructure, but get the row index and the column index from our e.target. So I need that line too, actually, like so. And now I am gonna make another util function. I'm gonna call this const get first open cell, like so. We will get first open cell for column. It's a little bit verbose, but whatever. And I will pass in, how about, we will pass in the column index for this. and then we will get the first open cell for column. Now, if you remember, if you go all the way back up here to our column section, remember I added the columns kind of weird, starting from 35, 28, 21, 14, 7, 0, and 0, and so on. This is the top cell. The top cell is the very last one. The reason why I did that is this will make our logic, the function that we're making right now, getting the first open cell easy, because we're starting from the bottom and then we're going up like so. By the way, we don't want anything to do with this top cell, the last element of each of these columns. So let's first do this. Where are we? So here's the get first open cell for column. We're passing the column index as a parameter, as an argument. So let's first grab the column associated with this column index. So we'll do const, let's see, row columns, and we will pass in the column index. So if we do, whoops, sorry about that, we will set this into a variable column. What this will do is it will look through our columns array and give us the associated column that we want based upon the column index. And then what do we want to do after? Do you remember what I said? Each column has this, where were we? Each column has the top cells as the last element. Now, I don't want anything to do with this last element. So why don't we get rid of that? So we'll do this, go back to my function, and I'll make that into another variable called column without top. And the way that I'm gonna get rid of the top element within this column array is I'm just gonna use the slice method. And I want to slice it starting from the 0th index and then not include the last element. So what index was the last element? 0, 1, no, sorry. 0, 1, 2, 3, wait, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I don't want to include the 6th element. So if I put this to 6, I will no longer have the last element. Let me just console log the column without top, just to make sure we're on the right track. Now we have to call this function, and where we're gonna call this function is within the handle cell click. So why don't we just call it here with the column index provided. Refresh the page. Remember, this will only happen when we click somewhere. I click here, I get this array without the top. Notice this, we're getting 6 elements without the top, so that is good. Everything is working according to plan so far. Now what do we want to do? We want to check starting from the bottom, we want to check to see if that has either a red class or a yellow class. If it does, it's not open, and then we gotta check the next one to get the next open cell. So let's do that. We're gonna do a for of loop, const, let's see, cell of column without top. We're gonna loop through each cell within that array. And let's first grab the class list associated with this cell. So we'll do const class list is get class list array of the cell that we're iterating over. And then we want to see if this class list has the yellow class or the red class. So we'll do this. How about we're checking to see if it doesn't have that, because then this is the first open one. If not class list includes yellow and it doesn't include, class list includes red, then we are dealing with the first open cell. So we will just return the cell that we are iterating over like so. Otherwise, we continue going in this for loop. So we don't do anything else. Now, if we went through the whole for loop and we never hit this return, that means every cell was full, meaning we're dealing with a column that doesn't have any other open cells. So we will return null in this case, showing the output, showing the function that called this, that if it is null, then you're dealing with a column that doesn't have any openings. So hopefully that made sense. Now let's go back to our handle cell click. We have called the get first open cell for column here just to test it out, but now we want to make use of this. And let's do this. I'm gonna extract this out into const open cell variable like so. Let's console log the open cell just to make sure we are on the right track. I click here and I do get a cell. So it appears to be working. But now, if the cell was full, this will be null. By the way, all of these open cells that we're getting, these div elements, if you were to compare this in a Boolean, like a truthy or a falsy value, these are all truthy values. A null that we are returning here is a falsy value. So we could do something clever like this. Within here, we could do if not open cell, this will only become true if it returned null, meaning there were no open cells. Then we just want to return. We don't want to do anything like so. Meaning we don't want to add another one here. Don't do anything. If a user clicks here and it's full, don't do anything. Now, and because we're returning directly here, we will never see past this point if there were no open cells. However, if we go to this line, that means we could safely assume that we have an open cell in that column. So what do we want to do is we want to fill up that open cell that we just grabbed from this function, give it a class of yellow or red, depending on whose turn it is. So we'll do another ternary operator here. We will say open cell class list add. If yellow is next is true, then we want to add the yellow class or the red class. Now, right after we add that, let's first make sure that works actually. I click here and I add it. Now I click again, I add another yellow one, but that's fine. But at least they're adding. And do you see, if I keep on clicking here, nothing happens because now we have this if not open cell return. So everything seems to be working as planned, but now we gotta flip the coin around to make it red's turn. So we will say X is, no, not X, yellow is next, is not yellow is next. We're flipping it so that now it's red's turn. Let's see if that works. And it appears to be working, although there are a few problems. So the first problem is, the first note that I want to write is, right after we add this class, we should, I'm gonna put a to do here, check the status of the game. Meaning, did this move that we have just made, did it result in a winner? We want to add that later on. So I'm just gonna put a big to do comment here. And now another problem that I see is this. Check this out. Do you see the yellow puck that's hovering over here up the top? If I click, it's still yellow. But if I click again, what dropped was not a yellow, but a red. Do you see that? So the reason why that's happening is when we click, we don't tell anything. Why did this yellow come here in the first place? When we hover over a cell, we're getting the top cell associated with that cell that we're hovering over, and we are putting a yellow puck or a red puck depending on whose turn it is. But we only add that when we mouse into a cell, right? But when we click, we didn't make any event handlers to flip this class around. So we have to change that so that after you click, this will become the other color. So let's think about how we can do that. So after I check the status of the game, which I didn't implement yet, I will do this. First, I will set yellow is next to the opposite color. And right after that, let's update the top cell. So let me grab the top cell associated with the column index that we're dealing with. Const top cell is top cells at the index column index. And let's flip its class. We first got to remove the class of the top cell. Now, I feel like we're going to be removing the class of the top cell more than once, so I'm going to make that into a function. So how about I make a function here? Const clear class, clear color from top. And I'll give a column index for this function. And then I will grab the const top cell based upon the column index that this function gets. And then I will do top cell class list, remove the yellow, and remove the red class. Now I will use this function within my handle cell mouse out. Instead of using all this up here, how about we just call right after clear color from top with the column index passed in like so. That shortens our code somewhat, and we're gonna be doing the same thing here. Clear color from top's column index. Let's see what happens now. I click. Now it did get rid of the yellow, but the problem is it also didn't add the red one. So how about we manually add the other color? Remember here we are flipping the color, right? Yellow is next, it's not yellow is next. So what we can do after we clear color from top is, do we want to grab the top cell? I think we do. I may change my mind because we need the top cell because we have to add the class anyways. So instead of passing in the index with the clear color from top function, why don't we just pass the top cell? Is that better? Actually, column index is better. So I'm just gonna stick with this. So I'm gonna grab the top cell, const top cell, top cells with the column index, and we want to clear top cell. The add, if yellow is next, add the yellow, else add the red. And this will work because we have flipped the turn already in the line 101. So this should work. And now it is working as intended. So do you see this color change? Yeah, so now that is working as intended. And if it's full, it does nothing, even if I click. So that is very good. And I think now what we have to do is we have to implement maybe our final function, which is to check the status of the game. Okay, so now let's do the checking of the status of the game. So the way that I'm gonna implement this function is I'm gonna make a class, a function called check status of game. And let's just call, before we make it, let's just call it here, check status of game. And this will take in one argument, and we're gonna be passing in the piece that we have just used, the cell that we have just put the piece on. So that is in the open cell variable. So let's pass in that open cell like so. And now let's add the check status of game in our functions section, check status of game, and this will take a cell. So remember that is a cell that we have just put the piece in. We have found the first open cell and we have put the piece in it, and we are passing that cell as an argument into this function. So what we want to do is, this is gonna be very tedious, but pretty much we have to check to see if there is a 4 or more in a row, horizontally, vertically, and the 2 diagonal directions. So we just have to do that manually. It's a little bit tedious, but it's just part of being a programmer. So let's first get the color associated with this cell. So what is the best way? Do we have a function that gives us the color of this cell? We do not. So I'm gonna make that right now. Let's do const get color of cell. We will pass in a cell as an argument of this function. And I'm gonna first grab the class list from the cell, get class list array, which we already made. This will give us an array of all the classes. And now we will do this. If class list includes the yellow class, whoops, I'm not sure, my touch bar is going crazy. And I'm just gonna return something, but because I'm just gonna have one line within this if, I'm just not gonna put the curly brace and just return right away. Return yellow, like so. so that it looks a little bit neater. And if it includes red, we will return red. If it doesn't include neither, we will return null, like so. Now, within our check status of game function, let's get the color of the cell. Const color is get color of cell. Now, I know we have a condition where we're returning null if it's not yellow or not red. Well, I guess we could check for that. So remember, null is a falsy value, whereas yellow and red are truthy values. So we could do something like this. If not color, don't do anything. So we just return. And because we could just, that's just one line, we could just put the return like so. So if there is no color, return. Otherwise, we either have a yellow class or a red class. So let's first check horizontally first. And what we have to do is give it depending on where the open cell was, we gotta check all the cells left of it until the color is, the cell's color that we're checking is not the same color of the color that we have in this variable. And then afterwards, check all the cells to the right of it. And anytime there is a associated color, the cell that we're checking has the same color, we have to make sure we keep track of which cells has the color, because later, if we decide that if we find out that we have found the winning combination, we want to add the win class to each of those cells, because later if we add the win class, they will make the border kind of the yellow or the red, depending on whose turn it is. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a couple variables here. I'm gonna do let winning cells, and I'm gonna initialize this with the cell that was passed in, because if we do have a winning combination, we know that the cell that we have just placed the board in, placed the piece in, will always be part of the winning formula, right? And this will be an array. We will fill this up as we have the same types of cells, depending on which way we're checking. Now, we want to check from the left of the cell first. So I'm going to do this. Let row to check. This will be the row index that we're checking. And because we're checking horizontally, we're going to be dealing with the same row of our cell. So let's just do cell. We need the row index and the column index too, right? So how about we grab that up here? Const row index, column index is equal to get cell location of our cell, like so. And row to check is going to be the same as the row index of our cell. And then let column to check. We're going to start from the left side. So column index is -1, like so. Now, we have to be careful, because if column index where we place the piece is at the 0th column, then there is no column to the left of it. So we have to do a while loop. We will do a while loop of when while column to check is greater or equal to 0. If it's not greater or equal to 0, then we have gone to the negative side, meaning there is no column there. So we're just going to break out of this while loop. So while column to check is greater or equal to 0, what do we want to do? Is let's get the cell that we're checking. Cell to check. Let me put cell to check is the get the rows array, which has is array of an array of all the rows. And we want to put the row to check array, and that will give us a row associated with the row to check index. And then within that array, we want to grab the cell associated with the column to check index. So this will give us the cell associated with these two parameters. So after we have done that, we want to check the color of it and to see if it's equal to the color that we have gotten up here. So let's do this. If if get color of cell to check is triple equals to our color of our cell, of the cell that we're checking it against, then we want to first add the cell to check to our winning cells array. And then, maybe not add, but push. Add is not a valid method of an array. Winning cells.push cell to check. And let's see, what else do we want to do? We want to decrement our column to check one more to go more left. Minus minus. What else do we want to do? I think that's it. And we want to keep on in this while loop while column to check is greater or equal to 0. But if that is not the case, meaning the color of the cell was either the opposite color or it was an open space, then we don't want to continue in this while loop anymore, right? So we just want to break out of it like so. Now that we have checked the left side horizontally, we gotta check the right side of the cell horizontally too. So row to checks is not gonna be updated. However, our column to check, we're gonna update that to column index +1 this time. So we're gonna copy this while loop here. We're just gonna make a few modifications. Now this time, we don't want to do while greater or equal to 0, but the edge case is when it exceeds the last column. So what is the last column? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So while column to check is less than or equal to 6, for otherwise we are exceeded the last column. So we will first get the cell to check, and then if it's equal to this, blah, blah, blah. But instead of column to check, decrementing column to check, we want to increment it this time, like so. Now we have checked both the left side of our cell in question and also the right side. So now we want to do if, what do we want to do actually? If winning cells length is greater or equal to 4, then we have a winner, right? So what do we want to do is if we have a winner, we want to get this game is live variable that we had here. Where were we? If winning cells, yeah, right here. We want to get the game is live and we want to set that as false because the game is no longer live. We want to, let's see. We also want to get all of our winning cells combination and add a class to each of them, the win class. So every time we we check the status of the game and we have a winner, we're gonna be having this repetitive code right here. So this is what I'll do. I'm gonna make a function which I will call check winning cells, and I will pass in the winning cells array because I'm gonna be using this many times. So let's make this function just above the check status of the game. Const check winning cells. This gets an array of cells. So I'll call that cells, like so. And I will do this. If cells length is greater or equal to 4, then we know we have a winner. So we're gonna do game is live is false. And then I want to manually add the win class to each of our winning combination. So we'll do for const cell of cells cell.class list add win, like so. And this is very nested. I'm not a big fan of nesting ifs and fors like this. So why don't we just do the opposite like this? How about if cells.length is less than 4, just return. Don't do anything. Otherwise, set the game is live to false, add the class, and do we want to do anything else? I think that's it for now. Oh, Why don't we update our status span that we haven't used? So where were we? Check winning cells. And then status span, we want to manipulate the text content of inside that element and set that as depending on who wants. So if X is, no, not X, yellow is next, we will write yellow, or red has 1, like so. Let's see if that works. So remember, we have only added the logic for the horizontal, right? Right here, check horizontally. So let's see if it works. I'm gonna make yellow win from left to right, and yellow has 1, that is working. Let me refresh the page. Let me go the other way this time, just to make sure that both way is working, and that also works. As a final test, let's make sure that the red works too. There we go. Okay, so that is working. So that is working as intended. Now, keep in mind that we have added the red has 1. We have added all this special. We are finally using the game is live variable. So let's make use of these elsewhere too. And as a matter of fact, I'm tired of refreshing the page by doing Command R every time. So why don't we add an event handler for the reset button here too, which we grab from this reset button query selector right here. So at the very bottom of adding event listeners, let's take care of that right now. We will do reset button add event listener of the click button, and we could make a separate function for this, a event handler button, but why don't we just do it inline, because we're not going to be using it elsewhere. So let's just put an arrow function like so inline. And what do we want to do? We want to first set the game is live to true. We want to also default to yellow is next is true, because yellow should always go first. And actually, before all that, why don't we loop through each of our cells, remove each of the classes individually. So let us loop through const for const row of rows, and then for const cell of row. We're going to loop through each cell and remove manually class list, remove the red class. We want to remove the yellow class. And finally, we want to remove the win class if someone has 1. And then after that, set game is live is true and yellow is next true. Let's see if that works. Put some things on, I reset and everything goes away. Yellow is next again. Let me have a winner. And we have this thing. I click reset, the yellow as 1 has not reset. So let's also get the status span of the text content and set that equal to an empty string. So let's see if that works. Red as 1, reset the game, and that is gone too. So that is all working. Now, another thing I want to do is, if we have a winner, let me see if we have a winner. We don't have a winner, not sure what's going on. Oh, it's because we didn't handle our horizontal winning yet. Let me make a horizontal winner. Someone has 1, but do you still see the puck up here? We shouldn't see that anymore because we shouldn't be playable. And if we click here, we shouldn't be able to fill up other parts of the board. So let's take care of that by using our game is live variable. So within our, first of all, within our handle mouse over, we won't do anything if not game is live, just return. Don't put a little class up here if the game is not live. Don't do anything, just return. Do we want that in the handle mouse out? Handle mouse out is not that harmful. It doesn't really do anything, so we don't need it here. But we definitely need one in the handle self click. We will say if not game is live, return. Don't do anything. Let's see if that works. Have a winner. I see a puck right now. It's because we never explicitly got rid of that puck right now. Or actually, I think we added later. But once we go away, there is no more pucks. And when we click, nothing happens. But we still have to take care of that puck that is there if we don't move about. if I click, it doesn't do anything. So it's not really doing anything, but it just doesn't look good for that puck to being there. And the reason why that puck is there is down here within the handle cell click. After we have added open cell classless add, what do? We check the status of game, we flip the yellow is next, we clear the color from top, and then we grab the top cell and we manually add the yellow or the red class to flip it, right? But we only want to do this if the game is live. So we will say if game is live, then do these. Otherwise, don't do this. We still do want to clear the color from top. Let's see if that took care of it. And now it's gone. So I think that's what we want. And let's go back to our check status of game and take care of all this tedious logic for the vertical now. I'm just gonna copy all this, check horizontally section, put some spaces and paste that in here. Check horizontally. I'm gonna replace this with check vertically. We don't want to redeclare the variables again. So I'm just gonna get rid of all of these lets. We want to reset the winning cells array back to just having a cell itself, because if, where were we? If we didn't pass, actually, I do actually have to do something here. Let's see, what do I want to do? Check winning cells. My dilemma right now is, because we're not returning anything from this function, there's no way for me to see if we should still continue checking or not. So I'm gonna return a Boolean from that. Check winning cells. Where are we? Right here. If it's less than 4, return, I'm gonna return false. And then at the very bottom, I'm gonna return true to show that we do have a winner. Check winning cells. So this will return a Boolean. Where we check vertically. Let's say let is winning combo, like so. So we will do check vertically. How about we put if before that actually? If is winning combo, just return. Don't do anything. So if it wasn't a winning combo, we're going to continue on this line of code. So we probably want to copy this and paste that down here as well. Let me erase this and show you guys what's going on so that it's not confusing. So we have all of this. This is the check horizontally logic starting from line 96 to line 120. We're just going to copy all that and then paste that below here, except we're gonna start changing things around. So we're gonna call this check vertically. We don't wanna redeclare these variables again. We're gonna reset the winning cells combination, get rid of these lets. And now we gotta be careful, we gotta think about it, right? Why is this erroring out here? Because we have the let again here. Let's get rid of the let, get that, there you go. All right, so now we're checking vertically, our column to check is gonna be same as our column index, our reference column. And also now our row to check, we're gonna start from vertically, let's see, let's start from -1. So which way is that? That is going up. -1, so this is row 0, row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. So we're checking top to bottom. And now we gotta be careful. Our while loop is no longer column to check is greater or equal to 0. It's gonna be row to check is greater or equal to 0. Not sure why this is green. Duplicate code. Okay, that's fine. I don't know where it is. Okay, so that's good. This is still good, except this time we want to decrement the row to check like so. And down here, once we have checked the top part, we want to check the bottom. So we want to get the row to check to be row to check +1. And we want to do while row to check is not less than or equal to 6, but because there are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows only, there's 6 columns and 5 rows, we want to go to 5. And then we want to increment the row to check, not the column to check. So make sure you did all of that carefully. And if we did that carefully, we should get winners vertically. Let's try that. I'll try with yellow first. Whoops. It only worked for 3. Why is it? Why did I get 3? That should not have been the case. Let me just try that one more time. Something is not happening correctly. Let's see. I'm going to go back to my is winning combo down here. If cells that length is less than 4, return false. Let me console log the winning cells down here. Winning cells. So there are 4 in here. We have the win, this one, and which one is this one? 0, 1, 2, 3. So we have the first, the one that we have played twice. Why do we have this one twice? Are we not doing something right now? Let's see. Row to check -1. And we're pushing while, no. Yes, this is correct. We are row to check incrementing. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, I realize what's going on. So when we reset this, instead of doing row to check is equal to row to check +1, when we're going on the other way, this should have been row index. I'm sorry about that. So whoops, this should be row index. Now that should work. I have a winner, and now let's get red to win. And red as 1. So that is working too. So now we got the hardest part, which is the vertical ways. So let's take care of that right now. Let me get rid of this console log. Let's grab this line 123 to line 147, all of this, the vertical section, paste that down here. We're gonna check diagonally, but the first direction we're gonna check is, the first way we're gonna check is from bottom left to top right, in that direction, in the / direction. So we gotta be very careful about how we check. I'm gonna start from checking the left side. So our column index is gonna be -1, but our row index, we're gonna go to the bottom, right? So as we go to the bottom, our row index is actually increasing. So we're gonna add 1 to our row index. So we're gonna do while let's start with column to check because that's easier. Column to check is greater or equal to 0, and row to check is less than or equal to 5. I believe there are 5 rows. Then we want to do all of this stuff, and after we want to increment the row to check and decrement the column to check, like so. And now that we have checked the left part diagonally, let's check the upper right part. So we want to reset our row to check and our column to check. Our row to check is now going to be -1, and our column to check is going to be +1. So they're flipped. So our while condition is going to be while column to check is less than or equal to 6, because there's 6 columns, and row to check is greater or equal to 0. We want to do all this logic. Make sure you're writing all these correctly, because otherwise you're going to have a pretty nasty bug. We're going to decrement the row to check, and then increment the column to check. I hope to God that we have wrote this correctly. Is winning combo, check winning cells. If is winning combo, return. Let's see if that works. So remember, we're checking from bottom left to top right. So let me try that. Yes, we have it. So that works. Let me try it the other way, except for red this time. Starting from the top first. And that also works. So that is good. Let's do it the other diagonal direction. So I'm going to copy all this diagonal check. Make another one for that one. Check diagonally the other way, the backward slash direction. I think we just gotta flip these around. Flip the row around now. If row to check is -1, column stays the same. So we're gonna do row to check is greater or equal to 0 here. And then instead of incrementing the row, we're gonna decrement it. And then reset this, make this plus, row to check is +1, while row to check is less than or equal to not 6, but 5. And then increment the row to check. Then check is winning combination. If is winning combo, do we need to do this? We don't need to return anywhere because this is actually the very last line, I think. So we could erase this like so. Actually, I'll just keep it in there. Why not? Just to be more consistent. Now let's see if that works. We're checking the other diagonal way. Don't want to accidentally win the opposite way. All right, there we go. So that works too. So I think we have all of our winning logic down now. Is there anything else that we have to do? There is actually one other thing we have to do. We are almost done. I think we have a fully working game, except we have to handle the rare case when we have a tie. So how do we check to see if we have a tie? What is this? What was this function called that we have just made? We have called this check status of game. Within our check status of game, why don't we also check to see if it is a tie or not? So if we don't return here, we now have to check to see if it's a tie. Check to see if we have a tie. And the way that we will have a tie is if every of these non-top cells, they must have either a yellow or a red. So let's do that. Const. How about I have a variable right now? Let is a tie. I will say that this is false. We will loop through const row of rows for const cell of row. Let's see. If, and we want to check the opposite. We're going to assume that it is not a tie. Actually, do I need that variable? Actually, I don't need this variable here. And another thing that I want to check is, does this rows have the top row? Let me check that up here. Rows does indeed have the top row, and I don't want this top row. So let's go back to my loop here. Let me get const rows without top. I'm gonna do the slice. Rows.slice. Starting from the 0, we want 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not include 6. So like so. We're gonna do for const row of rows without top. And then if, let's first get the cell class. So let's get const class list of cell, get cell, get class list array of the cell. And then if what do we want to do actually? If not, class list includes yellow and not class list includes red. If it doesn't include yellow and if it doesn't include a red, then we know we're not dealing with a tie, because the tie will only happen if this will never be true. So we will just return in this case. Otherwise, if you have gone through this double for loop and we have never returned, then we are dealing with a tie. So what we have to do is game is live to false, and we want to update the status span text content as game is a tie, like so. Now they gotta click reset to restart the game. Now, I'm not gonna mess around with this to hope to God that I get a tie. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna say connect for tie game. I'm gonna Google that. And I'm gonna go to the images. And where do we have a tie game? Is this a tie game? No. This looks like it is a tie game, except they're using different colors. So this is gonna be kind of confusing. I will put yellow in the, oh no, they have the same color. What am I talking about? Okay, so let me just copy this code, this tile combination, hoping that I don't mess this up. All right, so yeah, I'm pretty terrible at trying to copy this board. I actually failed, but luckily I still got a tie. And the game does say game is a tie. So it does seem to work. And I can't click anywhere, so that's good. All right, so guys, I think we are finally done with this game logic. So yes, I think we are fully done. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, guys. If you guys got stuck somewhere, I will post a link in the description below of the finished code. You could just go to my GitHub and check my code with yours and see where you went wrong. And now I highly encourage you guys to go back to the CSS, maybe change up the game logic a little bit, change up what the status says. Maybe you could add colors to it, make this connect for title a little bit better. That's up to you. Feel free to use this project in your personal portfolios. Hopefully you guys enjoy this. Guys, if you guys like my content, please click like and subscribe to my channel to get more content like this one. Anything related to coding, you will find it in my channel. So guys, hopefully you guys are staying safe right now. Hopefully you guys enjoy this and have a good day.